A cheap Chinese AI model is now performing on par with America's most expensive frontier models, and it's not even close to being the biggest story here. For the last year, the entire tech world has been convinced that OpenAI and a handful of American companies had an unbeatable lead in artificial intelligence. But something just happened that's forcing everyone to completely reconsider what's actually possible, and it's happening way faster than anyone expected. China just released an AI model called DeepSeek, and the numbers are genuinely shocking. We're talking about a model that costs a fraction of what it takes to build comparable American systems, yet it's matching or beating GPT-4o and Claude 3.5 in multiple benchmarks that actually matter. Speed tests, reasoning tasks, coding challenges, the results are consistently competitive. But here's what's actually wild. The efficiency gap suggests China might have figured out something fundamentally different about how to train these models, and that changes everything about how the global AI race is actually structured. So let's break down what just happened, why it matters, and what comes next in a race that just got a whole lot more interesting. First, the raw performance numbers. DeepSeek ran a series of standardized AI benchmarks. These are like the SAT tests for AI models. MMLU, which tests broad knowledge across hundreds of subjects, math, which grades performance on complex mathematical reasoning, coding challenges where the model has to write functional code from scratch. On most of these, DeepSeek scored somewhere between GPT-4 and GPT-4o, which sounds good until you realize what makes this genuinely alarming to Silicon Valley. The training cost was reported to be under $6 million. GPT-4 cost somewhere in the ballpark of $100 million. Claude 3.5's training cost is estimated between $80 and $100 million. Gemini's costs are likely comparable or higher. We're talking about a 15 to 20 times cost advantage, and China achieved it not by cutting corners, but by using a different architecture entirely. This isn't a cheaper version of the same thing. It's a fundamentally more efficient approach. Now, the speed is equally important. DeepSeek processes requests faster than many American models in real-world conditions. That's not just a comfort thing. Latency matters massively for actual deployment. A model that's slightly less capable but twice as fast can actually be more useful in production. And when you combine lower training costs with faster inference, you're looking at a business model that becomes genuinely competitive with incumbents who are burning through billions in compute costs. Here's the part that's got American executives and policymakers genuinely concerned. China has historically been 1 to 2 years behind on frontier AI capabilities. Everyone expected that gap to persist for years, but this suggests the gap isn't time anymore, it's innovation. China might have leapfrogged the conventional scaling approach that OpenAI and others have been relying on. While American labs have been betting on massive models trained on massive data, China appears to have cracked a more efficient training process. We don't know exactly how they did it. The paper on DeepSeek's architecture is available, but the full technical details remain proprietary. What researchers can suggest suggests a combination of smarter training techniques, better data curation, and architectural innovations that prioritize efficiency over raw parameter count. This matters because if America's advantage was based on having better access to GPUs and bigger budgets, that advantage is suddenly a lot less meaningful. If China can achieve comparable results at lower cost, they can outcompete on volume, iteration speed, and price. The geopolitical implications are impossible to ignore. AI capability is now explicitly tied to national power and security. The U.S. has been operating under the assumption that it maintains a decisive lead that will persist long enough to establish dominance in AI-based industries and applications. DeepSeek doesn't necessarily flip that script overnight. American models still have deployed advantage and ecosystem integration, but it does suggest that the window for maintaining uncontested AI leadership is rapidly closing. We're also seeing this at the exact moment when U.S. export controls on advanced AI chips to China are supposed to be tightening further. The Biden administration has been escalating restrictions on high-end GPUs, trying to deny China the hardware needed for training frontier models. But if DeepSeek proves you can train competitive models on cheaper, less advanced hardware through superior engineering, those controls become less effective. China just announced it publicly, which also signals confidence. They're not hiding this capability, they're broadcasting it. So what happens next? This is the question everyone's asking. In the short term, expect massive investment in understanding how DeepSeek works and replicating its efficiency gains. OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, every major lab will be dissecting this. The cost per capability gap is too large to ignore. If you can cut training costs by 90% while maintaining performance, that's a business model revolution. Expect the next generation of American frontier models to prioritize efficiency in ways they haven't before. Medium term, we're probably looking at even more aggressive competition and press pressure on AI services. If models become cheaper to train and faster to run, the commoditization of AI accelerates. That's actually good for consumers and businesses using AI tools, but it's potentially devastating for companies banking on premium pricing for model access. Longer term, this reshuffles global AI dominance. If China can consistently match or exceed American capabilities while operating at lower cost, the economic and strategic leverage shifts. We could be entering a phase where competition drives rapid innovation across all labs, which means better AI, faster progress, and more uncertainty about who's leading at any given moment. The wild card here is geopolitics. The U.S. might respond to this with even more aggressive chip export controls, investment in domestic manufacturing, or restrictions on Chinese AI model access.